Oh gosh, I can't think of anyone who deserves it more. I can't think of anyone who remained involved with the museum as long and as much as Steve and Bronwyn did. They were always a part of the museum. They always had the museum's best interest in their hearts and in their minds. Other people would sometimes come in and do really great things and wander away and maybe come back, but they were always there, and they remained there.
We came here in 1982 to start a family, and when we moved here in 82, Betsy Hall moved here at the same time. Betsy owned an art gallery in Atlanta, and Steve was an artist. He was working in an oil company with his father and his brother, but he was an artist. So the museum, when it was still in the old building, reached out to Betsy to put together this show. I think it was the Tiffany table settings. And Betsy enlisted both Steve and me to help with that show in the round building on Slappy. So somebody invited us. Somebody engaged us to come and work on that show, and we did. The museum was our social outlet, too, as a young couple. We became patrons. I was so proud of being a patron of something, I can't tell you. That meant that we got to get dressed up twice a year and go to a fabulous dinner dance and just have the best time. I mean, it was fancy. It was our only chance to be fancy, and we really loved it a lot. We had friends who we always sat with, Parker Presley, Pearl Hall and Hinton. Sounded like a law firm.
I first had the opportunity to meet Steve and Bronwyn when we were really young. I think I was late 20s, early 30s, so I've known them a really long time. But one thing that has been consistent is that they're just really great people and always so open and nice to everyone.
You know, when I was asked to do this, I started thinking about Steve and actually how long I had known him and all of our just everything, all of the stories, anytime I'd been around him, all of our history, working together up here at the museum. And I just remember being just drawn to him and Bronwyn. I just found them fascinating. I thought they were unlike any other adults that I knew, eccentric, warm, just delightful people to be around.
You know, Dad's kind of like the flashy, entertainment socialite, but none of that happens without Mom, who behind the scenes probably making the ship move. So
both of them just have that way of making things better, helping to educate people, whether it's about the arts or whether it's about food. But they also took a lot of pride in whatever they touched. They're two of the neatest people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing, and I'm really blessed to be able to call them a friend.
Welcoming, gracious. They are funny together. Daddy is always outwardly the outgoing, the funny, the charming, all those things. But Mom's those things too. She has let Dad shine and be himself. They made a really good team. They provided a wonderful example for my sister and I to aspire to, as far as setting that example for community involvement and how you treat people and how you engage with the world.
Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm was just a word that would describe both Steve and Bronwyn. When they committed to take on a project, whether it's something at home or in the community, both of them got in it together. They did it as a couple, and they got real dedicated about it. And get on board or get out of the way.
And people tell me all the time, they're like, I just love your parents. And I go, I do too. I got lucky in the parent department. And I really have a canned line. But it's the truth, so it doesn't matter. And I'm happy to repeat it over and over and over again.
Steve went on the board, and right off the bat, he enjoyed committee work, and which kind of surprised me, and it made me realize how much this was his niche, because he cared not just about exhibitions and collections. I mean, he had opinions about the bylaws. He had opinions about personnel and things like that, so he really became engaged, and over the years he enjoyed working with many of the directors, and many of the board members meant a lot to him, and they accomplished and tackled things that they felt needed addressing.
Steve, of course, being an artist himself, understood the importance of having an art museum in a community, and he wanted to make sure that the museum would always thrive.
The mission of the museum to be admission-free was one that Steve really believed in. He thought it was worth their time and their energy to make that happen.
Steve really had a vision for where he wanted the museum to go, and it was, I think, just celebrating its 5th anniversary on Metal Art Drive when I started working there. And the collection was just starting to come together. We were looking at exhibitions that were pretty amazing at that time. And Steve was right there, making sure that things happened, and as was Bronwyn.
Many volunteers' hours went from Steve and Bronwyn to the soup kitchen. How many of you knew that? How many of you have done that? They helped other art fundraisers. It wasn't limited to just the museum that we all love. They helped the arts community. They had great ideas. They played a role in bringing National Public Radio to South Georgia.
They also chaired Fantasia, which was a dinner party that was a huge fundraiser for the museum, and gosh, that was a tough job. And then they did Medieval Madness, which was a blast.
When I would work on those projects, I was a stay-at-home mother at that time. My children came to the museum. They saw volunteer work up close and personal.
My earliest memories with Mom are her volunteering places.
Mom definitely always, I think looking back, you realize a lot more. I mean, she did a lot of volunteer and service work. She's not asking for any show. Definitely wants to get things right. And make things nice for people.
And so she was engaged. She gave her time to a lot of different things. And when Mom commits something, she doesn't do it half-heartedly. She gives it everything she has. And she does it beautifully. And I definitely watched that growing up. And I think we saw that that's what you do. When you're in a community, you participate, you help. You try to make it a better place. You get involved.
When they would do like their balls or whatever, I mean, we showed up as like peasant children, but had a lot of fun. You know, my parents showed me that they could have fun, and we with their kids around. And I always thought that was really cool. I'm not sure I'm mastering that now with my kids, but they would have these productions and have, you know, things going on at the museum that we were there at the same time.
But not only did we dress up as peasants for a medieval themed party, they had us asking for money as people came through the front door, like begging for change. You know, so we were all involved. But I think when you get your kids involved in stuff like that at an early age, you're helping set their course for what they go on to do. And so I'm glad they made us do that. I'm glad they had us participate. And I'm glad we got to watch them try to make their community a better place.
With all of our fundraising events, Bronwyn was right there front and center, especially I remember most Let's Make a Bid, which was a non-digital televised auction, a 6-hour TV auction on WALB TV, and Bronwyn really worked on that for 30 years.
Well, I did everything in Let's Make a Bid. In years to come, I was in charge of the phone bank. I may have been in charge of getting all the talent on TV, getting everybody to work those boards, teaching them how to work the boards. I've fed the bids to the runners. I have checked out the merchandise. I've been in charge of just about every piece of that, including feeding the volunteers. Let's Make a Bid was on IBM Selectrics when I started. Cue cards and all that stuff was written by hand. Every sequencing event we had to sequence minute by minute by minute when we started. It took a lot of time and it took a lot of volunteers, and eventually as technology took over, it kind of streamlined, but it was so much fun. And the kids got a good foundation in both volunteer work, community.
And Teddy and I would be watching the TV, waiting for those red nails to turn the card on television. We'd be like, look, there's Mom's hands. It was just something that we were always a part of.
I've done a lot, but I've gotten every bit of it back. I can think of so many people that I met doing those projects, and these people are friends still. It's been our cultural hub for 35 years. There's none of Steve's art in this room. This room is filled with people who have exhibited at the museum. Some were artists that we met after they exhibited, and some were people that Steve encouraged to have shows at the museum. Once Steve started to serve on the board, we also started to entertain in our home many of the exhibiting artists. And they came here, they stayed here, they played with my children.
And they'd feed members of the board. They'd have board events at their home. They would open their home at the drop of a hat to help the museum. And who does that? But they were great, never complained, and always glad to do it. And I think they too loved doing it, especially meeting some of the artists that they've remained friends with through the years. So it was great for them in that way. But I know it was a lot of work. So I always admired and appreciated them for doing that. They did a lot.
I mean, throughout our life, I would say it's almost comical, but to me it's so normal. In my home, there could be someone staying in our house, someone passing through. Constantly, there could be someone else, and that was so normal to me.
And I think that a lot of that really sunk in to the children's psyche, that this was something that people do. They make things, not just their daddy, they make things.
I enjoyed any time going out to their house. They were so warm and welcoming and just kind of had an open door policy and were so hospitable. I mean, like true, Southern hospitality.
There is not a doubt in my mind that the museum would ever be where it is now without Steve and Bronwyn, without their vision, without their support.
We kind of shifted gears after a while because Steve, who had always been a prolific painter and drawer, even when he was running his own business, stepped away from the business and went back to painting full time. So he kind of stepped away from committee work for a while to really pursue art as a career, and he did. He did for 12, 15 years, largely.
Being an artist was definitely part of who Daddy was. I mean, from a child. He loved to paint, he loved to draw. There wasn't a time he wasn't drawing. I think somewhere, like the story goes, he drew on, the back of the bathroom door or something when he was 8 or something like that.
Steve's art was special because it was such a unique blend. It's not your standard still life painting. It was one that totally came out of his mind, and it was fun. And you wanted to talk about it, and you wanted to be part of that fun.
I remember the first time, I want to say it was probably one of the first times that I saw his art in his house. There was a painting of Bronwyn, and it was young Bronwyn, and she's like at a cash register, and she's got this pose going right here, and I just was amazed by it. And all of the people in his paintings, I mean, he depicted people in a certain way. I mean, like, it was almost like a caricature, but just everybody had so much personality.
I am such a huge fan of Steve's work. It's funny, it's whimsical, it's smart, it's colorful.
He has one that was, you know how we all go to dog shows? Well, these were dogs holding a people show. It's, I mean, it was fun. It didn't matter, and a lot of it covered South Georgia, the things he loved so much.
Much like Daddy, his art is fun, it's whimsical, it is all the things he loved.
One of his shows was titled Dogs, Women, and Architecture. And that sticks with me a lot with him. I think it sums up things he liked a lot.
I mean, he had a huge impression on me as an artist because I wanted to basically emulate like what I saw in his work. I mean, I was fascinated with the way that he saw landscapes and that everything was in such vivid color.
They are people he knows. They are places he's visited. They are the things that he cares about. And I think it's just a reflection of him.
How he brought in some of the uniqueness of the environment that we're here in South Georgia to make parallels to the Greek mythology. He really had a great way of bringing that together.
And so it brings a lot of color, a lot of happiness, a lot of joy to any space.
The first show that he had at the museum was called Fire on Baptist Hill, and he put that together in about 13 weeks, and it was 26 black and white drawings. Well, it was inspirational. He cranked those out, just hilarious genre pictures, sweet pictures of his childhood in the South at his great aunts, pictures of people watering their lawns, people's, he was totally bemused with things, but it really gave him the confidence to show those black and white drawings, and we had a wonderful time. He had another show in 2004, which was new paintings by Steve Hinton, including 7 Deadly Sins, which was pretty powerful and funny and pointed and wicked. But anyway, so that was twice that the museum reached out to him and let him do his thing, and it really meant a lot to us. And it's good to get a body of work done. That's what painters do.
He was a storyteller, and he enjoyed telling stories. And so his paintings tell those stories.
He had a memory like nobody I've ever known before, and he could rattle off art history and tie that back to his work, and even just funny stories that you would never imagine were going on with that painting. But when you looked at it again, you're like, yeah.
So that is our dog Merle. The 2 dogs on the side, the English setters, are Deer and Darlin. This is I think it's the Venus de Milo. My art history brain should know that. Like the Venus on the shell coming out. A party. He loved a party. Mom and Dad both love a party. They're the best dancers you will ever find. Yeah, so these are the things that he enjoyed.
What I miss is in him and the art is not having the playback of the story behind the portrait or behind the scene that he did.
When we lost Steve, a few weeks after that, I told Bronwyn I sure would like to have one of Steve's paintbrushes. The more I've looked at it and thought about it, it's a paintbrush. You can go and buy it at any art shop in Atlanta, a good one, I'm sure, and it means a lot. But it's not the brush, it's the talent behind it and the person behind it. And Steve could take an ordinary paintbrush and not only with his talent create a beautiful masterpiece to look at, but he did it in a whimsical way. It was just hilarious. It had a story, it was about hospitality. He created fun in painting and friends. Anybody that came to look at his arts at a showing or at home or wherever, you got into a discussion about it. It drew you into it. It made you laugh. It was fun.
He had painted a very small picture of his daughter Teddy in front of his house. And I stared at that picture and I just went, he caught it all. He caught so much there of essence of Teddy. And I think that was the first time that I kind of saw more to it than what he was doing. So much of what I saw before was large. I mean, he did these big, like theater-size canvases. And they were fabulous, and big whimsical dancing people, that sort of thing, and they were great. But what it just struck me, I guess, for some reason. And as you can often remember of a moment that sticks with you, I still do.
You know, Steve, almost every year at the art auction, donated a piece of his artwork to the museum. For the benefit of raising funds for the museum. So he was very generous in sharing his work in that way too. So yeah, his work meant a lot to the museum. Steve was very charismatic, and he was really larger than life.
Steve just lit up a room when he walked into it. He was almost like the Pied Piper. He always just brought so much joy and laughter to people.
Fun, entertaining, life of the party. I mean, in high school, when you walked into a gym with holy clothes on, you were embarrassed. But once you were removed and you were in college, you wanted to share it and appreciate it. And he owned it. And it made you laugh. So the things that were different became your favorite things.
Daddy told me before he died that we were talking about medicine, what we were going to do if he got sicker and if he was going to do chemo again and all this stuff. And, you know, I was like, Daddy, whatever you decide I'm good with, because it's your life. And he said, well, I've had a really good life. I'm really happy with my life. I've had a good life, and I'm good with where I am. You know, and so I hold that knowing that he enjoyed life, and he loved his life, and he loved the people in his life.
He had a great outlook on life. Never had a bad day, you know, and he saw every day as being wonderful and took advantage of it and saw the best in people.
You couldn't be around Steve for 30 minutes without finding out that he had 3 girls in his life. It's, of course, Bronwyn, but also Teddy and Chloe.
I'm sorry that Teddy and I's kids aren't gonna get to be around him. Because of the joy and the magic and the sense of like silliness and fun that he brings to everything. But we have lots of good stories. And just like the people that come up to us in the grocery store and tell us how much they love our parents, I hope those same people tell our kids all the funny, wonderful, kind things about BB and Doodah.
My fondest memories of Steve are the way he made you feel, the way you were left, from being in his presence. I mean, it was just he had such an energy to him and such a positive energy. And if you were fortunate enough to just be in his presence, I mean, you were gifted that. You felt it, and it really was just a special thing. And, Steve being gone, it just leaves such a void. A void here at the museum, a void in our community, a void among friends. I mean, he just had such a huge energy that just filled you. So.
Around 2008, I think he just decided that it was time, to go back and to start working at the museum again. And painting was starting to slow down. And so he just sort of threw himself back in. And by 2013, they made him a lifetime trustee, which meant a lot to him.
The impact that both Steve and Bronwyn have made on this museum and the art community in Albany and Southwest Georgia as a whole is pretty immeasurable.
I think their impact in the city was definitely by making the museum stronger in the community. And there are very few cities of our size that have an art museum, and they definitely don't have an accredited art museum like we have with the Albany Museum of Art. They did that. They worked really hard to make sure it got accredited. Steve and I worked side by side on many, many projects through that first accreditation process, and as did Bronwyn.
I don't want to be humble about my parents. I really love them. I love to share them with people. I like to show them off.
What treasures the museum has in both Bronwyn and Steve. They were a dynamic duo.
I think people remember Mom and Dad as being giving, gracious, and fun. And I think that's, if those are the things you're remembered for, that's great.
I like how my parents have treated people. I definitely, take that. I think that there's no judgment. So I'm appreciative for that gift that they've given us.
They have shown so much generosity in just trying to ensure the success of the museum.
Not everybody's an artist. Not everybody, is a chef. Not everybody can give their time. But it's, finding the way that you can make a difference and do that. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. But find how you can give back and do that. And let that be your legacy.
This was our family hub, and this meant a lot to Steve. And I'm proud if he put it on a path or helped it get on the path that it's on now, because it's on a good one, I think.
I mean, Mom and Daddy could have gone anywhere, but they chose to stay. I mean, this is their home. This was their community. They enjoyed Albany. They enjoyed their friends here. They saw and tried to bring out the best in Albany, I think, in their own way. Mom always said, leave things better than you find it. And her daddy had told her, leave things better than you found them. And I think for her, that was like when her dad would take her camping, kind of like the leave no trace, always clean up. If there's a piece of trash, take it with you. But I think that kind of motto of hers stuck to everything. I mean, that was her, did you leave it better than you found it? And I think that is kind of, they definitely left Albany better than they found it.
I think their fingerprint is really on so many different facets of the museum, and will always be in the future of the museum.
And I feel like the museum now today is as alive as it's ever been. It is doing, so many things on so many levels for so many people. So if we've had any part in building this layer on layer, or just sticking with it and never would have ever thought not to, then we've done our part. We have a child who works there. That means an awful lot to us.
I think we have a wonderful institution, and Mom and Dad saw that, which is why they spent so much time there. And, it's nice walking in a place every day where you can know that your parents made a difference and your parents contributed, and that you get to do the same.